Hello everybody, I'm Antonia and this is Noel and we are from Boxtail Soup Theatre Company and Happy New Year!
Woohoo!
Welcome to the first vlog of 2023.
Absolutely, and as ever, if you've been enjoying these vlogs or watching these vlogs for a while, or if you're brand new here, please do give us a thumbs up, give us a like, leave us a comment, possibly even subscribe to the channel. That would be great. All of that is really a huge help to us.
And welcome to the new subscribers. This vlog is a little bit different. We are going to hand over in a second to our past selves. Well, it's actually really me. You're behind the camera.
I was there.
He was there. Because we have been putting together some of the content for our Gulliver filmed project, which we'll talk properly about probably in the next vlog, I would think. So we went to visit our very good friend Dan, who writes all the music for our shows. And we did a little interview, well, I sort of did an interview with him mainly about the music for Gulliver, but we did kind of segue into talking about all the shows really, actually, didn't we?
Yeah, which is why we kind of decided that it was also probably would be good to include it here, is because we initially sort of thought we'd just be talking about the music for Gulliver, but in the end, naturally, the conversation kind of went to talking about some of the music for the other shows and how he creates the music for the shows and how we work with him in general.
So,
we thought you might be interested.
Without further ado, here we are. I'm going to hand you over to past me and lovely Dan Melrose to hear about how he writes the music for our shows. So I am here in Manchester with our brilliant composer, Dan Melrose, who has been composing for our shows pretty much since the very beginning. Northanger Abbey we did with recorded music that we kind of pulled from film scores and that sort of thing, although subsequently you have written us a replacement for that one. But since Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which was our second show, Dan's been making the music, and they're all, what I found astounding about all of them is that they're all so different, the soundtracks. So how do you get started?
Well, I usually take my lead from you. You will give me a sort of set of inspirational pieces, and I'll be honest, I do essentially try and copy them to start with, and see where it takes me. I'll pick my I will pick my instrumentation and go from there.
We often give you a kind of key track, don't we? We sort of say, this is the sort of vibe that we want for this show. And it'll be, we'll try and, Noel and I try and stick very loosely to a sort of genre of music for each one. For example, when we were doing the Grimm's Tales, I think we landed quite early on with kind of a blues theme, didn't we, for the adult one? And then a slightly more child-friendly, a little bit jazzy, but for the kids version of the Grimm's, and then we send you a key track and you kind of get the vibe.
That was nice and easy for me, so I'll pick, a particular set of instruments and go from there. It's really easy when it's something like bluesy or something straightforward.
Yeah, like it's quite your vibe, isn't it? That sort of bluesy feel. But Gulliver was different, again, different from the other ones. So I think we sent you some. Actually, I remember Noel and I tend to watch sort of TV shows, films, or when we're listening to albums on our way places or whatever, and we'll pick tracks. And one of them we sent you, I think, for Gulliver was The Mandalorian.
Oh yes.
Yeah, and you were like, what are they thinking? But it was this. It's the sense. Often for us, it's the sense of travelling or the sense of something. For Gulliver, that was the thing. It was the sense of travelling and the movement that gave. So when we send you that stuff, what do you use? What do you pick up the guitar? Do you?
It all depends on what you've sent me, to be perfectly honest. And I do like to try and focus on a different instrument per show, really, to start off with. So something like The Mandalorian, I wouldn't go anywhere near my guitar. I would find some nice cinematic sort of samples, and go from there. I do love using sample libraries at the moment. So I think when we got around to doing that show, I'd just got a lot of my new sample libraries for my computer, so there was a lot of interesting stuff to sort of delve into and use there that I've not touched upon before. So
for anyone who's sort of watching who doesn't really know what that means, what does a sample library contain?
So a sample library is a sort of a digital collection of instruments which I can pick from. So in my studio I've only got a guitar and a piano and drums and some basic acoustic instruments, but from a sample library I can draw full-on orchestras and very, very cinematic sounds,
and different kinds of drums and all that sort of thing that might
stuff that you wouldn't ordinarily that I wouldn't have in my basement.
No,
essentially.
exactly. A full orchestra, you do not have
I
a
don't
full
have a full orchestra in my
in your basement. Who does? But yeah, so that was for Gulliver. I think you did. Is there any live playing in that soundtrack? Is there any guitars?
Oh, there's always a little bit of live playing as
Yeah.
well, on top of it to sort of
fills
flesh it out
yeah.
a little bit. Is the
And
phrase.
some of the melodies, I feel like for some of the tracks, I feel like you played those.
Yes, I
on...
believe, if I remember correctly, I did play them on guitar, a few
That's
of them.
it, yeah.
So I'll play them on the piano and with the samples, or and then I'll mirror them on the guitar as
Mirror
well.
them all
so.
the time. Yeah, so we'll have like video calls sometimes with Dan, and he's down in his studio, kind of with the. I always find it quite impressive. I see these screens and all these things, these lines of tracks, and I don't have it's sort of a slightly different language really for. But for you, it's like you know exactly what all of those.
It does look overly complex. I'll be honest.
Yeah, but it sounds
I
great.
surprise myself sometimes.
So when do you write? Do you find that you set a days aside to go and you're like, right, well, it's Saturday today, I'm going to go down into the studio and I'm going to blitz it for a day?
That's exactly what I do.
Is it?
To be honest, I tend to start early in the mornings, get up, cup of coffee in my pajamas, and I'll start early, and I usually find that I can do 1 or 2 tracks in a day.
Yeah.
Depending on how sort of.
How inspired you feel, or how
Exactly.
much it flows, because we find that when we write, we'll maybe say, oh well, today we're going to do a nice chunk of writing, we're going to try and get to the end of, I don't know, chapter 5 if a book is in chapters that we're adapting, but sometimes that's much harder than others.
It is. I mean, it also depends on the type of music as well. Something I might be more comfortable with, something bluesy or folksy. I can probably sort of bash out a few tunes in that vein in a day. But if I'm doing something orchestral for you, that's not quite in my wheelhouse, and I have to think about it a little bit more.
Yeah.
So it can take a little bit longer, and sometimes I get a little bit more perfection-y with them. Sometimes I can get bogged down.
Sure, with just like a tiny little part of the melody or a part of
Yes.
I can imagine that. And do you find that? Is there a time though where you might be, I don't know, doing something completely different, like driving home or whatever, and inspiration will strike you and?
Occasionally. Normally, I often make demos of the tracks, and I will listen to them in the car as I'm driving around. So I'll have little ideas as I'm driving around. And when I get home, I have to put them into practice, try to remember what I was thinking about, to be honest. But yeah.
Yeah, it's like when we write notes on our phones and we're like, I've written one word and I'm like, what did that mean? That must have been something to do with the show, but I'm not quite sure what I meant when I wrote that. Do you find it very different writing for, this is probably a stupid question really, but writing for theatre productions that we do as opposed to when you would write, I don't know, a tune for yourself?
Definitely. It's a whole different kettle of fish. When I write for myself, I just tend to I really do sort of see where it goes usually, or I have a specific idea of a song that I want to write. But when I'm writing for you guys, it's all about aiming for a particular feel, a particular mood. I never think of my own music in terms of mood, really.
Sure.
I just, but I do with you lot.
With us lot. Yeah, we're quite prescriptive. I often wonder how difficult that might be. Sometimes Dan will send us a piece and we'll say, oh, you know what, we really love the first 8 bars of this, and then we need it to go in a different direction. We need it to increase in intensity, or we need it to, whatever it might be for a particular moment in the show. How difficult is that prescriptive nature of writing for the?
I wouldn't say it was difficult. I found those bits quite enjoyable, to be honest. I like to change the tone of a piece of music as I'm going through. There are often certain chord changes that you can implement, and key changes that really do affect the mood of something, which I always find makes music more interesting. So, if I write a song, it's usually pretty sort of straight, whereas when you're changing the mood of something, it can be fun. It's a fun thing to do.
That's good to know, because sometimes we feel a little bit guilty when we're listening to these brilliant things that Dan has sent us, and we're like, actually Dan, can that be in the major, and can it just be a little bit faster, and we need it to last for this amount of time. So it's good that we're not.
No, it's good. It's good. I like it to be prescribed.
Okay.
So you keep them coming.
Keep them coming. And we've had everything. Like I said earlier, we've had everything from when we were doing the Christmas shows, and this is slightly off point from Gulliver, but I think it's interesting because I feel like the range of stuff that you've composed for us is so impressive. we did Hansel and Gretel, and we said to Dan, right, for this we want it to be really kid friendly but jazzy, so that it's not sort of a standard children's show soundtrack. And then we wanted for A Christmas Carol, we were like, this has got to have an element of traditional Christmas, literally Christmas carols in, but feel dramatic and a bit Victorian. And, you know, we had full orchestral moments.
I mean, it's really, you have really sort of stretched my abilities at times. But it's been great fun. I've learned a lot during, during writing for Boxtail. I've touched on things that I wouldn't ordinarily, touch upon. I mean, I'm not a great pianist, for example, but I can sit and, if you'll give me, a bit of Chopin or something like that, and then I can sit and really think about how it's been put together, and then sort of write a piece that's, recreate it in a fashion.
That was for Dorian, wasn't it? Of course,
yes.
like we said, because there was in the book they play Chopin. Dorian sits down at the piano and plays Chopin for his friends, and we said to Dan for the beginning of the show we really wanted to use this particular Chopin piano piece and have it then sort of disintegrate and distort.
We deconstructed it a bit, but it was great fun to do actually.
And then made the kind of underworld of the show come through in the music, and it was wonderful because it totally set the tone for the whole show. For us, music is absolutely integral to the shows, and we often will sit, and when we have tracks from you, when we're stuck in rehearsals, we'll sit and we'll listen to a track to get the inspiration for how we're going to do the next bit of the... So it really, it inspires us in the next part of the creation of the piece that we're making. And you've seen a few of the shows.
Not as many as I should have.
No, but it is difficult, isn't it? It's difficult to...
It is.
But what is it, when the ones that you have seen, do you find that you sit there as a perfectionist and go, oh, I'd do that differently, or are you proud?
Oh, no, I'm
never satisfied.
I'm never satisfied at all. I always sit there and I'm quite frustrated.
It's the standard artist thing, isn't it? Of like never watch or listen to your own work because you'll always nitpick it.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I find it endlessly frustrating. I could go back and even when I listen to, even not even seeing the shows, but just going back and listening to the music, quite often I think I'd have done that differently. I'm quite looking for. We're going to redo
Casting the Runes.
So I'm quite looking forward to that because I can get my hands on something that I've already done and make it better.
Well, this is a show that we made a while ago, so Noel and I are also looking forward to being able to tweak the dramatic line of that and to do the set, and so it is nice, isn't it, sometimes to... I think you have to be really careful to revisit things, you overwork as an artist, you're never quite satisfied, or you always think, but we have people coming up to us at the end of the shows always asking for the soundtrack, so they do love it.
Yeah, well, I should market them somehow.
Yes, you should. That'll be the next thing. We'll have the Gulliver soundtrack on sale for you all to buy. Thank you so much, Dan.
You're
it's
very
been
welcome.
Lovely. This has been really interesting. I hope that we've all enjoyed hearing about how Dan writes the music. It's like I said, it's a hugely integral part to the piece, and for Gulliver, it really helps to drive the piece along and helps us to really take that character on a journey. So thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Very much looking forward to the next show.
Long may it continue.
Long may it continue.
there we go, lovely Dan. It was so nice to see him in person as well. Often when we're working with him, it's remotely, so we'll be sending him stuff, and we'll be on
FaceTime
video
or Zoom
chat
or whatever. Or
yeah, but it's always lovely to go and see him in person. So it was a bit of a treat to be able to go and do that face to face.
We hope you enjoyed it. We very much enjoy working with Dan, and he is honestly the most incredible musician, and the breadth of work that he has created for us is quite extraordinary. You only have to look, if you go and look at the trailers for the shows, actually, you'll see for each of the shows, we use the music from the show for the trailer. So if you haven't seen some of them, you'll get a sense at least of the kind of music that he wrote for each one, and the sheer breadth of, it's
the
incredible.
different styles, the different instruments, the different things, it's just amazing.
So thank you very, very much for watching, and as we said at the beginning, if you are enjoying the vlogs, please do give us a thumbs up, leave us a comment, subscribe to the channel. It's lovely to have you, and we'll see you again next week.